Today's episode, Josh and I are back and ready to recap and discuss the NBA draft and our thoughts, winners and losers, and reactions, as well as free agency opening up on Monday. We are here now on Wednesday, August 4th, a couple of days later, to discuss and give our just first initial reactions based on where guys are, where guys aren't just yet, and all that next. Welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Josh.
And we are back to go over, like I mentioned at the top, once more. Super excited to just really I enjoyed my vacation, but I am ready. It is prime time NBA offseason time. Like I've mentioned many times to Josh and everyone else who listens to this podcast, I am excited because I love this time of year. It's awesome. It's just the frenzy of 3 months before the next season starts. But draft coverage, we'll go over here in a moment. We're also going to discuss, like I said, free agency and just where guys really aren't going just yet, as well as some guys that have already signed, a good majority actually so far. But first, before we do anything else, Josh, anything you have after I took a vacation, you didn't. So anything you got for me or for the listeners before we get started?
It feels like, because I'm trying to bring my mind back to thinking about the draft, it just feels like it's been a long time since last Thursday.
Yeah, no.
It's only been, 6 days, so it's not like that long ago. But yeah, it was interesting. I guess I'm in a weird place in between, like, there's a lot that has happened, but compared to like the past two NBA off seasons, not much has happened. It's kind of what it feels like. I don't know.
It's been a weird, eventful / uneventful. It's like been this weird balance of like guys that we, kind of thought where they were going, is that where they were going to go? But also just these trades have been kind of like what made up for it. It's been really fun. I agree with you. I think there's nothing's going to beat the Kawhi and Paul George off season. Like that's nothing. I don't think that was 2019 now. Nothing's going to beat that. But like, I'll probably never experience anything like that ever again, quite frankly. But then again, it's the NBA. Yeah, it's been fun. Like, I think the draft and the balance of the fact that they were like 4 days apart really made up for that. I think it kind of just gave us a really fun 4 to 5 day stretch here where it was just a really exciting time for the offseason. And like I said, it's kind of just crammed together. So I enjoyed it. And I'm excited to put our thoughts and see how right and wrong we're going to be in the next month to 12 months, depending on how some of these guys turn out and how some of these signings do. But we're going to actually start with the draft and go kind of just through a couple winners, losers, initial reactions, some grades, just all around your fun draft nerd talk, the fun stuff that you came here to hear. Josh, let's just open it up with a couple winners and losers, just first reactions, whatever you want to open it up with, and we'll just roll through there. We've got obviously some grades to go through and some things we want to touch on.
I guess honestly, I guess I would just look at my big draft night winner. I think is the Houston Rockets. The Rockets got Jalen Green at the number 2 overall pick. Was really, it wasn't a shot you could really miss. It was a slam dunk. They couldn't go wrong in any direction. But Jalen Green is a player that some analysts that I'd seen had mocked looked like a Tracy McGrady, an 18-year-old Tracy McGrady. And he's going to be right there with Cade Cunningham when it comes to who's going to win Rookie of the Year this coming season. And then the Rockets traded up to number 16 to pick the guy that I had as kind of the sleeper pick of the entire draft, and Alperen Şengün out of Besiktas professional basketball team in Turkey. And Şengün, the Turkish Super League MVP, who averaged 20 points per game overseas in European ball, is also being seen as a guy who's going to be incredibly productive playing alongside Christian Wood with the Rockets. I thought the Rockets just had a great draft, and they had several other picks. They had a lot of draft picks throughout the night, but I thought they were able to do a lot of good things with them.
Just to go over a couple of them in detail, Jalen Green, like you already mentioned, at 2, Sengun at 16. They also got Usman Garuba, another guy you really liked at 23, a guy who I since then went back and watched film on. I told you I would do that as my homework for my little vacation. I still can't find an offensive comparison. So this is going to be awesome to watch him develop. I tried. I spent like 30 minutes going, okay, who's his comparison? I love comparisons. I don't have one. I still can't figure it out. So I'm excited. Maybe Boris Diaw with like no shooting. I just couldn't figure it out. But Josh Christopher as well at 24, I really liked as well. I see a lot of B pluses floating around in the NBA draft space, and I don't understand. I am A plus all the way. This Rockets draft, just based on pure potential, is huge because Christopher's a guy that was highly ranked in high school, went to Arizona State, kind of fell a little bit. Fell in the sense that he still was a first round pick. He's a guy that probably was going to slip into the first part of the second round. The talent was just so high this year. I think the Rockets got off really well with Green and the rest of the guys in the first round. The fact that they got all that talent in the first round is just what blows my mind. They gave up quite a bit to get Sengun at 16, however, but it's the price worth paying if you've got, like you mentioned, the Turkish League MVP. So I really do like the Rockets. That was one we weren't going to disagree on whatsoever. We've got a couple we probably disagree on, but overall, there really wasn't a lot of losers per se. We'll get to that in a little bit, but there was a lot more winners. And I think the Rockets were the key winner of the night. Any other thoughts on the Rockets before I give you one of my big winners?
No, other than I think they did a lot of times the draft it's not science, it's kind of an art. I think that's kind of the phrasing that's used at times because you can never be sure on these guys. But the Rockets did a good job of getting a lot of picks in the round and then making a lot of picks of players who just have a lot of talent in different areas that at least a couple of these I think are going to hit well if they can build around them to have a really good team in the future.
All right, absolutely. I won't even spend time on the Pistons, obviously getting the number 1 pick. And then the only reason I want to mention it is because I hope with the fact, obviously, they got Cade. We're happy for them. Yay, Detroit. You got Cade Cunningham. You had 3 opportunities to take 3 guys here.
Can we pause for a second and say how Cade Cunningham said in his post-draft interview that he wanted the bad boy Pistons to be back in the NBA?
Yeah. He
wants the
talk
mentality. About that.
He wants the mentality. I don't want to.
The mentality.
He wants the toughness, the mentality. He knows that he'll get He knows he'll get a 4-game suspension if he.
I think someone needs to show him videos of the bad boy Pistons and ask him how it fits into the current rule set.
It's funny because like that era would be 10 years. The title was 10 years before he was born.
Yeah,
like, it's just crazy to think that era is completely getting phased out of the memory of these guys growing up. So,
because with the bad boy Pistons, it was totally fine to deliver a hard foul into the throat of a player driving into the lane. Now you'll get automatically ejected for that. So it's just it wasn't just fine. That was like the part of the Pistons strategy.
He might be lucky to not get a 5-game suspension for doing something like that now.
Yeah.
I do like though. I mean, I like that he's excited for Detroit. He likes that.
Oh,
like, yeah. I get what he's trying to say. I'm not trying to overthink it. I think it's crazy that, like, obviously, if we were going verbatim off what he said, he'd get in a lot of trouble. But I think it's awesome that he's saying all the right things. And I know that's like your typical number 1 pick. But like, you didn't hear Zion say a lot of these things. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to be better than Zion. That's not what I'm saying. I like that Cade's talking some talk. Like, I like that he's really like. He seems like he's owning up to this. He likes this. Like, I'm super excited. I'm happy for Detroit. No one's holding a gun to my head when I said that. But the reason I bring this up is actually not Cade Cunningham. Like I said, congratulations. They had the first opportunity to take the top 3 guys that all are probably going to be, borderline perennial all-stars and maybe better. My conversation piece would be, is this the 3rd time we're now going to doubt Luka Garza? He fell all the way to the very end of the second round. And the reason I say that, you're probably like, what do you mean? In high school, he was ranked 91st coming out of high school, going to Iowa, playing 4 years at Iowa, and took 4 years for him to develop into the player he was, and then winning Naismith Player of the Year. We doubted him for 4 years there. We doubted him out of high school. Are we going to doubt him being a second-round pick? There's probably a reason. He's a big guy. He can shoot. Can he really defend the current NBA? I don't know. But I'm just saying that it's a really great, in terms of just, I'm not going to call him a steal because he was like the 54th overall pick, I believe. It was really late. I don't have the number in front of me. but I like it. And I think it's going to be better if he stays in there and back, and maybe he's going to be back up behind maybe Isaiah Stewart or Jeremy Grant, whatever, whoever, doesn't matter. But he's going to have some time in the G League to develop. I think he could be really good. I think this could be a third time's a charm. We're doubting this guy. And Luka Garza could really surprise a lot of people. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. He was great in college.
So I think one of the reasons that Luka Garza had fallen, we have to realize that far as he's 22, he's going to be 23 about a month or so into the NBA season. He's not the most athletic of guys. He's got really good size. I mean, he's 6'11", 243. So his size is great. It's just he's not the most athletic for his size. It's not one of those guys that you're going to get to be able to stretch that size longer in a rim defending situation with peak athleticism, or stretching it further when it comes to his offensive game or on his rebounding side. But I think it's an interesting skill set. The player play style I'd seen the most in him, based on watching him in college. I mean, he seems like, it reminded me of like a college Kevin Love that I'd seen before. He's got, I think people will often tend to forget Kevin Love was a vicious rebounder when he first entered the NBA. Lots of 2020 games in Minnesota, which is really the game that Luka Garza was playing. Luka Garza was just coming to the league a bit older than Kevin Love was at that time. And I think it'll be interesting if he can kind of stretch that shot and shoot from the outside. Maybe the Pistons got a great steal, but I can definitely understand why he fell so far.
Yeah, he's got the workhorse type, like in the gym rat. He'll work on getting better in the places he needs to. He just can't be better athletically, and he's not a quick guy. So I think that's just going to be his downfall ultimately. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. The Pistons we don't have to digress on because of those reasons of Cade Cunningham, like we mentioned. But all in all, they were winners. I think I gave him overall an A-, just because it's Cade Cunningham. We're only going to see if he's going to fail or succeed. I'm just going to say this because it's time to address this, in my opinion. And I know you may not have them at A+ or wherever you may have them, but I think your Charlotte Hornets, they're my next one we can go through because I think it's one we're definitely not going to disagree on. You could be as unbiased as humanly possible. I don't care. But I think your Charlotte Hornets, I think they were one of the best teams in this draft. I think they did really well, whether you like the picks or not, whatever, we'll get into that, I guess. But I have the Charlotte Hornets as an A+ for this draft.
Yeah, I think the draft went very interesting for Charlotte. I had a range of emotions on draft night. I guess that'd be the best way to phrase it. You were there with me watching it. When they picked James Bouknight at 11, I wasn't immediately happy with the selection for two reasons. One, it just wasn't the direction that I thought we should be going in, and picking another guard who didn't shoot a great percentage in college. And because James Bouknight looked very unhappy as he was being selected by the Charlotte Hornets. I don't think anyone can deny that. It was very much talked about on Twitter throughout the entire night how unhappy he looked in that moment.
I think it's because he was told he was being drafted no higher than 7. And I think he was discouraged by the fact he fell. I don't think he's disappointed by Charlotte because I think he's going to play. I think he's going to come in and he's going to get some time to play next to Lamelo. I think it's a great skill set next to him. I don't love the 29% in college. We agreed on that in the preview, but he's not I think he's just the obviously the lottery pick. He's the piece that started this whole draft for them. Like, I can't deny and look past the fact they got Kai Jones at 19, which, by the way, you and I have been talking about for weeks. They could have got him at 11. We thought they were going to get him 11, and they get him at 19. That's huge. They also got JT Thor, which I haven't watched a ton of, but I know he's got potential. I know he's one of those guys that's athletic and can do a lot of things really well. Whether he can do a lot of things that, one thing maybe that's going to set him apart, I don't know. I don't know enough about him so far. I have to look more into him. I'm sure you'll know plenty about him by the end of next season. And then number 56, they got Scotty Lewis, a guard out of Florida that he played with Trey Mann. He got the ball quite a bit from Trey Mann. Trey Mann's a great passer. I don't know anything about Scotty Lewis, but he has to be decent. I can only hope if I'm going to give him an A+, I have to just hope that all these picks are not bad. And you needed guards and you addressed it. I like it. I was happy.
So I guess kind of I'm going to continue to go through stretching back through the book night part. I'm much more happy now, a week removed, about book night on the team than I was at the time. His introductory press conferences, his early workouts, and everything that he's shown in Charlotte has painted a very different picture about him being very excited to play alongside LaMelo, which everyone is that comes into Charlotte is very excited to play alongside LaMelo. It just seems to be the natural state. Um, and yeah, he looks like he has a lot of talent. He's a young guy. I think he could develop well. On draft night, it was very obviously an indication that Devonte Graham was kind of being given the boot by Charlotte, which I'll touch on here because I just don't feel like it's a big story for us to talk about in the free agency side, that Devonte Graham was traded to New Orleans for a lottery protected first round pick next season, which I believe becomes unprotected if the Pelicans get a lottery pick in 2022. It becomes unprotected in 2023. Then the Charlotte Hornets just kind of move forward doing a straight first round pick swap for I believe it's the 2022 first round pick with the New York Knicks, which is a very interesting trade. Just a straight 1-for-1. Both teams are betting on, well, the Hornets are betting on that they're not going to be at 19 or below next year, I think. And the Knicks are betting on that the Hornets would be. So, very interesting thing. Kai Jones, obviously, an absolute steal at 19 for Charlotte, who definitely considered picking him at 11. So, I mean, that's an absolute win. I'm not going to lie and say it's not awesome that we have a player that we now have Charlotte Hornets jerseys that just say Thor on the back. I'm not gonna claim that that's not cool. But I fully expect JT Thor and Scotty Lewis will spend a long time playing for the Greensboro Swarm next season. I mean, like Lewis definitely would be a two-way contract player. He didn't exactly impress in his time at Florida, and it's the hope that the Hornets can work on developing him in Greensboro. And JT Thor, very raw, but has a lot of physical skills and some natural shooting touch for a guy who hasn't been playing basketball all that long. Not to mention he's 6'9" with a 7'3" wingspan, so it's can't go wrong with that.
I mean, they got Plumlee in the 37 pick from Detroit to get that pick for Thor. I like the move overall. I like everything they did. Have you given a single letter grade yet? I actually didn't pay attention to that first part. Have you given a letter grade for anybody? Do you want to give a letter grade for your Hornets?
No, I don't want to give letter grades.
Okay,
there's no actual.
I gave them an A+, like I mentioned. So if you don't have one, that's fine. I gave them an A+. I think they're a winner. Who's your next winner if you have any other, unless you have any other thoughts on the Hornets?
Okay, so this one's probably going to come across as just a very weird kind of winner pick, but I mean, maybe. Let's talk about the weird draft that the Golden State Warriors had.
Let's.
Yeah, so at 7th overall, the Golden State Warriors selected Jonathan Kuminga, your favorite player in the draft, who really shouldn't have been available at 7, we had thought. And he's an incredible talent. Like, no one's denying that. And it's a great steal for Golden State at 7, them not being able to move the picks again. Like I kind of said that they would, despite they talked about they were going to move the picks, but that's what they said about the Wiseman pick, and they never moved that. So they didn't move the picks again. They picked Kuminga, which is a great steal. Doesn't fit what they're trying to do at all, which is odd. It's one of those where I'm left in the middle because it's an incredible talent who is a project and 18 years old for a team that has, as much as we hate to say it, an aging Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, where the time is now. It's not 5 years from now when Kuminga will be 23 and actually approaching the time to be a star in the NBA. And then they select Moses Moody at 14, which I loved that pick for them. And I think that's going to be an immediate impact for Moody and Golden State right out of the start. I thought that was a great pick for them at 14. Another guy who probably could have been picked earlier than 14. And so it was a great value for where they were at. Golden State continues to pick great players, but I am still confused about what their plan is. So I think they're a winner because they got incredible talent for lower picks than they should have gone for.
And that's exactly verbatim. We could have like scripted this. And that was how like similar I was going to discuss the Warriors. I have nothing different to say. I'll be clear on my thoughts on Kuminga. I think he's my favorite player in this draft, and I think he should not have been at 7. Obviously, that's basically what he's a talent that he'll end up being a good guy in this draft. He's 18. I can't digress that. Like, he's 18. And he just shouldn't have been available at 7, whether they fit or not. I go off with my grades. This is how I just very brief, quick here. I go off the fact that we're going to assume these guys are going to be the best potential of the guys that they're going to be, whether they're fit now or later, it doesn't matter. They're going to be a fit for that team, assuming they don't get traded. That's how I look at it. If they're assuming these guys are going to be a Golden State Warrior forever, these are great picks. Moody should not have been available at 14, but based on how things fell, I think San Antonio was a fun fit. We'll get to that. But they do have pretty guard heavy rotation. I gave him an A+. I'm very generous with these grades this year, but I think there's that many winners. You would kill me and the fans would kill me if I gave the Warriors anything less than a high A because they picked my 2 top guys in this draft in terms of guys I think will be really good that weren't the top 3. So I can't give him anything worse than like an A. I gave him an A+ because I love how they are going to be, whether Kuminga's good now or he's good in 5 to 10 years. I guess we'll find out. I don't understand the thought process. My only thing I can think of is he getting moved for a star? I don't know. The draft capital's gone now. That 7 and 14 was your capital. Wiseman at 2 was your capital. Now they may just be ushering in this new wave. They might try to win as best they can with what they have. They're not going to win the West with just Steph and Clay and Draymond. It's not possible. I don't understand.
Right now, Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins.
Right. I don't think that no one's rebounding of the ball other than Draymond Green right there. My thought process, my exact point is that I do like the fact that Moody is relatively young still too. You've got Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman. That's a great 3 in the next 3 years. It really is. I think this is an ushering of another era, but is this the way to do it? I can't doubt them entirely yet. They picked Steph Curry. I mean, they picked Klay Thompson. They picked Draymond Green. They've got a history of drafting guys that do really well. So I don't know. I'm so torn, and I don't want to give them any more love than I should because these guys are so young, and I don't know what they're going to do. A+ if I had to just go off how I grade things. A+. They did really well with the picks they had. Who is your next team? The Golden State Warriors, of course, we can spend more time on if they make another move in the future. I think they are due for a move. I just don't know what it is. I have 2 more. I have 2 more A's and 1 more B+. The B+ is quick. I have a lot of winners, actually.
Let's go through your more. I have 1 more team that I think had a good draft that I want to mention, but I only have 1 more that had a good draft I want to mention. So let's just go through some of your other ones first.
I think the Nets had a really good draft based on the fact that they were title favorites for the most part, having Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. And they added Cam Thomas, and they added our boy Day'Ron Sharpe to the mix, man. I think he would have been a great pick for Phoenix. I think he would have been a great backup pick for Phoenix where he was supposed to have gone. He was eventually traded to Brooklyn. I just like who they picked. I mean, I think it's less about the fact that, Cam Thomas, tomorrow could come in and compete for them. I think he's going to be able to come off that bench, kind of that Bruce Brown role that he was in last year, but a way better scoring Bruce Brown, like a guy that can come in and immediately, you need a spark plug. If he can compete in the NBA right now, I absolutely think he can. That's why I like it overall. Sharpe's going to be a guy they put in the whatever the Brooklyn. Obviously, how Charlotte has the Greensboro Swarm. I don't know who the Brooklyn Nets shooting team is, but he'll be wherever they are to develop, and he'll take some time. But maybe he plays. I don't know. But I like both picks overall. I don't. That's really the only reason I gave him a kind of an AA minus. I just like the fit in the picks.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you think Sharpe's a guy that would end up in the G League. I think usually at the 29th overall pick, I don't see that happen. I mean, he's going to play in summer league ball, sure. But for a team like the Nets, I thought they were going out to fulfill a need, which was outside of DeAndre Jordan, who can be a major liability for obvious reasons on the court. They didn't have a lot of size and defense on the inside. They ran Blake Griffin at center a fair amount. Blake Griffin is not a center. And so I think they did. I mean, outside of they played Nick Claxton a lot in the last year, but I think that this goes out and fulfills a need for kind of having a big and guy on the inside. And I think usually a team isn't going to want to send their first round pick to the G League immediately.
The clarification to my thinking would be, do they think he's raw enough that he might need some time early in the season, or that they could bring him in? That two-way kind of up down. I don't know. I think he'll play. He's a great fit at the spot they got him at. So I think they're just going to let him play and he'll learn. He's got that work ethic. He'll get better every day. Game, off day, practice, game. He'll get better. Like, he'll get in that time period in between games. He'll get better. I guess quickly, we'll probably cross over one of these next two. I think the Thunder had a great draft. I think it's just one of those. Okay, so we're doing great. All right, cool. Then quickly, Josh Giddey's a great pick for me. Trey Mann. The only thing I have to say about the Thunder draft in terms of just in detail, I do like Jeremiah Robinson Earl, great guy out of Eric Paschal kind of type guy that came out of Villanova. I like the fit there in terms of, he's a little older. I think he was a junior last year. But regardless, Robinson Earl's a great player and was at Villanova. The key or the highlight for me, obviously Giddey went at 6. We can discuss that. You were a guy very high on Giddey. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. But Trey Mann at 18, instead of celebrating on draft night, there was a video of him at 1:30 Eastern posted, 1:30 a.m., by the way, of him working out and him like getting up shots. And for a team like the Thunder with a guy that's young like Trey Mann, you have to love that. It could be your, hoo-ha, draft night, whatever, right? It is what it is. It could be fluff, but it's your 18th overall pick trying to get better on draft night. Like, that's huge. And I think that's really going to be a great fit for them as a guard that they can hopefully play in and out with Shea. I don't know how that works long-term, but I do like the pick overall. I like the Thunder overall. I gave them an A. Drayson's going to kill me for not giving him an A+, but I gave him an A.
Yeah, I think I like just about all the guys they brought in. I mean, I like Giddey. I like Mann. I was a big fan of Jeremiah Robinson Earl in college. I thought these guys were very good. I thought the Giddey pick was, it shocked me at number 6. Based on what we found out later that other teams were going to take him if he was still there after 6. Yeah. And now I get it. I think Sam Presti and the Thunder did a good job. You go grab talent that may need some time to develop, but is going to be great. And I think they did an excellent job in that. They really made their selections based on what they thought. They didn't let where they thought other teams were going to go, I guess, kind of on the draft board, decide where they were going to pick. Maybe they didn't do that quite as much as the San Antonio Spurs, but nobody needs to do that as much as the Spurs. But yeah, no, I thought it was good for the Thunder. I think that they're stocking some really good talent there. I still think that the Thunder should take some of these picks in bulk and move them for a major star at some point. It's probably not the time to pull that trigger right now. The time will come in a couple of years from now when they're close, when they're that star away, and then you move, like, say, 10 picks for a huge name on the move. But
I think you hit the nail on the head. We're actually 2 years away from a free agency that could match the 2019 and 2020 free agencies, where we're going to have a lot of guys in that 28 years old to 33 years old window. I don't have the list in front of me, but 2023 is supposed to be big based on how player options might fall, et cetera. So there's going to be some disgruntled guys in next offseason that they have the capital for. They're going to be probably the only team left at this point with the capital and free agency, or capital and cap space, to be able to get that done. I agree with you. It's not time. It's just the only time I have for them is the fact that as long as the guy in this draft or guys multiple were young or on the young side, weren't anywhere near 21, other than I do like Robinson Earl just as a player, then that's it. They fit it was a great fit. I don't care what the position was. If it wasn't Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's replacement, then they did well. And I still, unfortunately, with that logic, Kuminga was there. Like, I can't get that through my own head where it's like a Shea Kuminga pick and roll would have been awesome to see in the next like 4 years. I do like Giddey though. I can't deny the talent.
Yeah, the only thing to get there is that Giddey's probably more polished than Kuminga is right now.
It
To be
doesn't matter for
fair,
the Thunder.
almost everybody in the first round is more polished than Kuminga is right now. He's got a lot to work on, a lot of raw talent, but most of the guys in the lottery you're going to looking at. I mean, Giddey's played pro basketball in Australia in the same league that LaMelo Ball came out of, and he was almost a walking triple double there. So you're looking at a guy who can come in and really be a star now.
And he knows what he's doing. That's what you're saying. He knows what he's doing. My thought process with the Thunder is if you take a guy out of high school right now who's 15, he's still going to fit your timeline like at this rate. So take Kuminga. He's 18 years old. My goodness. Either pick I'm not upset about. I think they're winners. I didn't give them an A+, like I said. I gave them an A. I do like the talent. I think at this point, it's just a matter of we're going to be 30 by the time they succeed. Lastly, I guess, because you've got one more. Was that your one more? That was your Thunder, right? That was the Thunder. Okay, so my last one is a weird one. I left it we don't have to spend any time on it because they had one pick in the second round. I liked Jared Butler to the Jazz. I really did. I liked it for the fact that he fits just their mentality, fits their just play style, and I just like the pick. I don't like the health concerns. Obviously, he fell for a reason, had a lot of that issue where he had to play himself into the health to be able to be drafted. There's a lot more to that story. I'm not going to divulge a time on it. I just want to say I like the pick. I think the Jazz obviously is a team that should have won the West last year, possibly, or could have won the West last year. They were a team that I don't know what they're missing. They did well. They're a defensive team that could shoot really well. I just think that every little piece for them, we'll get to their free agency in a moment. I think every little tiny piece that's going to matter for them, or every tiny piece they make is going to matter right now because these guys are going to have to win and contribute because that team needs something, just this little missing spice in the cauldron that's going to get them over the pot, right? Or over the top. What is it going to be? Is it Jared Butler coming off the bench in a playoff game? And I don't know, but I do like the fit because I think they're contenders for the next maybe 1 to 2, 3 more years. So overall, is that anything else on the winner side, Josh, or any thoughts on the Jazz, I guess, as your Western Conference favorite?
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think the Jazz are still obviously going to be a contending team just from that they bring back just about everybody. The Butler pick makes sense. You go for a guy who's going to be entering the NBA a bit older than these other drafted players, who is a proven winner. It makes sense for what a team like Utah is trying to do. Do I think it's that little extra that's going to get them over the hump? No, I think what they were missing in the playoffs was another dynamic scorer. The only dynamic scorer they have is Donovan Mitchell. Frankly, the teams that win titles we see have more than one dynamic scorer. What I mean is a guy who can score the ball in multiple capacities. The Jazz have a lot of great scorers who only tend to score in one capacity. Your shooters in Bogdanovich and Ingles, who are lights out shooters. Gobert, who can score very well from like 3 feet from the basket and does very effectively and plays great defense. But Donovan Mitchell is the only dynamic scorer in Utah. I think Mike Conley's a bit past it. I think that they at one time hoped that that's what he was going to be do, but I think he's a bit past it. I still think he's a great offensive facilitator, but he's not that clutch time guy. They don't have a Chris Middleton to their Giannis, as poor of an example like matching play styles as that is. There's no number 2 who is going to be able to pick it up when teams zero in on Donovan Mitchell, and I think that's where the Jazz fall flat.
So compounding on top of what you just said, that was actually the example I was going to give was like, you got to have guys that can also, on top of the fact they have one dynamic scorer, you need at least one dynamic scorer that can score in the clutch or score in that final 2 minutes where it really matters, right? And I think a lot of title teams, just historically, the Chris Middleton and the Giannis example was Giannis scored 50 in Game 6. Chris Middleton had the most ever in the last 25 years of clutch baskets. That matters. That won them the title. They need a guy like that with Donovan Mitchell. Whether that's a trade package, I don't know. But I agree with you. On top of that, I think that scoring in that time period specifically is going to matter for them in those close games because they know they can stop people in close games. They're missing that oomph, right? So, like I said, Butler, they had a 30th overall pick. They got their guy that they wanted at 40. So, like I said, I think I gave him a B+. I just like Butler. I hope he can turn out well after having to do the fitness to play panel thing. So, losers, the more somber part of the draft.
Yeah, I've got just one.
Okay.
One that I want to talk about because I thought there were a lot of winners, and I don't want to I'm not trying to be mean to any franchise, but Trevor, since we don't have trivia this week, let's play a game. If you're a franchise who has had some issues with players wanting to stay and play there, but you've got two fantastic point guards who are showing out incredibly talented, and you've got a big man who you selected with the number 2 pick a couple of years ago who now wants kind of out of your organization. So you're kind of just set in a position where you've got 2 great point guards and you've got a lottery pick. What do you do with that lottery pick? If you said draft a 22-year-old point guard to add to your other point guards, this 22-year-old being only 1 year younger and several years older than your other one, you might be a fit for the Sacramento Kings front office. Because the Sacramento Kings have nothing outside of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. Marvin Bagley wants out. And so they pick Davion Mitchell. And this is not a crack on Davion Mitchell. I think he's an amazing player. This doesn't fit the Kings at all. What are they doing? Are they just going to play 3 point guards? Is that the plan?
So I'm not gonna lie for trivia. I'm glad this wasn't trivia. You confused me for a moment.
Yeah,
I forgot about the Kings. I forgot about the Kings at 9. I thought there was the bigger loser. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, questionable or curious choice at best. I like Mitchell. I agree with you. Yeah, I like Mitchell as a prospect. I do. I think he's a little bit of that older. We're big on the fact that if you're drafting guys, like it's tough to take them if they're a little bit older. I'm not a huge fan of taking an older guy. I mean, you've seen it work out with Cam Johnson, guys like that. But it's less about the fact that he's a 20 to 22-year-old, somewhere in that range. I actually don't know exactly
22.
how old he is. 22. Okay, so then he's old.
He'll be turning 23 next month.
So then, yeah, that's questionable. That's not even the reason it's questionable. Yeah, the fit is.
There is no fit.
Are they doing something else? What is it? They can't trade
unless they're getting rid of De'Aaron Fox. None of it makes a lot of sense, and even that doesn't make any sense. That's also a bad decision. So
yeah, I don't know.
They have quality players at one position that it made sense not to pick, and they pick that position with their one lottery pick. It just really confuses me.
We were not so generous to Kings fans on the preview, and I just feel like we're not so generous again. They're doing it to themselves at this point. I don't have anything else to say. I liked is it Kita is his last name? I did like the fact that they got a big guy with a big wingspan that averaged 3.5 blocks per game. At Utah State last year. Second round pick. Is he a guy's going to be like a Richaun Holmes type? I don't know, but I do like him as a raw prospect. Yeah, I'm baffled, and I'm sorry, Kings fans, that we're not nicer to you. Can you give us a reason to be nicer to you, and then we will?
I really hope for the best for the Kings. I really do. They're a franchise that I really do want to do well. Maybe I love them just because I love the design and color scheme of everything they have, and because I'm a big fan of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. I really want the Kings to do well. And inexplicably, it just seems like bad decision after bad decision is made. So I really don't know.
All right, Josh. Let's play trivia. If you're the San Antonio Spurs, and you have the 12th overall pick, and there are guys like, let me get the draft board pulled up. Actually, I had it in front of me, and now I don't. And there are guys behind you like Moses Moody, Alperen Sengun, Trey Mann, Trey Murphy, Chris Duarte, Corey Kispert. I don't know if I said Kispert yet. Jalen Johnson, Keon Johnson, who fell all the way to 21. Isaiah Jackson, Usman Gruba, and now you start to get into that weird late round. And you take Josh Primo? I can't question Greg Popovich because it's Greg Popovich. Huh?
Well, on the side of questioning Greg Popovich, I think we've done a lot. I'm not going to do a ton of questioning him here because we do enough of that when we talk about the Olympic team. But yeah, I don't think there's been a more Greg Popovich pick than selecting Josh Primo, a guy where when you told me he was selected at 12, I said, who? And that's still kind of my perspective. I believe he was mocked by everybody to be a second round pick. And he got picked at 12. And I think everyone's reaction was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of potential, but 12? Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe Greg Popovich he obviously is one of the greatest coaches ever. Maybe I'm just dumb and so is every other analyst because Greg Popovich is playing 4D chess while we're playing checkers.
Right. I love it. I was literally about to say that.
I just don't see it.
There has to be something there because when you look at a guy like Primo, who I'm not going to sit here and give you a b-ball breakdown on, but he averaged 8.1 points and 3.4 rebounds on 43% shooting from the field at Alabama. That scares me for a 12th overall pick. I also he had to have been picked because Greg Popovich just doesn't like American players. And granted, he's got a lot of them on his roster. He really does. I say that jokingly. He has a lot of them. But
yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean? He just drafted Keldon Johnson and put him inexplicably on Team USA.
Right.
Yeah.
This guy's Canadian. I can only hope that that's the reason he took him. I don't know. Canadian guards, I guess. I don't know. Something has to give. I can't figure it out. We will find out because watch Josh Primo be at the next Tony Parker. I said that jokingly.
Oh, yeah. Watch him win Rookie of the Year and just blow me out of the water. I don't know.
I will say I do like the fact he's 6'6", 190. Obviously, he'll grow into his NBA body, being only, of course, born in 2002. So quite young. But my point being is I do like the fact that he has a bigger slashing playmaker. I watched some of him, but he was supposed to be in the 42 to 50 range. Josh, every major analyst, including, and we're not major analysts, but me, had him at 42 to 50.
Yep.
That's a 30-point jump.
Yep.
That's it. I gave him a D plus with a question mark. That's it. I gave him a D plus with a question mark.
I don't see.
Man.
The pick was so inexplicable. I don't even know how to evaluate if it's bad. Like, it was so out of left field that I had to stop and say, did I miss something?
No.
It wasn't like a pick like Davion Mitchell, who I thought's a great player who should be picked in that range, that made no sense for the Kings. This was a guy that it was just like, what have I missed about him that he's being picked at 12?
He also shot 38% from three and 75% from the free throw line. So his true shooting number is probably on the higher side for a prospect of his caliber. But I guess the one thing we might have both missed, I guess the thing you're asking for, is Primo, according to NBA.com, Primo turned 18 on December 24th, 2020, making him the youngest player in NCAA Division I in the 2020-2021 season. So he's really young. So, yeah, that's probably the thought process there. Greg Popovich, I guess, is trying to usher in maybe a new era. Maybe this is his small 4D chess hint that he's retiring in a few years. He probably is anyway. But I don't know. I mean, give a guy to whoever's going to take over the reins at San Antonio and give him a guy that just turned 18 like not that long ago. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, D plus with a question mark. The question mark is the fact that Josh Primo is very young, I guess, and Greg Popovich is a Zen master. The Pacers, I don't have to spend any time on. I didn't love the fact that they took Chris Duarte. I don't like the fact that Chris Duarte is older than me by a while. So I don't like that he's older than both of us. I don't have to spend any time with the Pacers unless you have any thoughts. And then weirdly enough, I didn't love the Pelicans draft either for the fact that you have Zion Williamson. You need to draft guys to play around him, and you traded out of 10 and you picked Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's the second best on-ball defender in this draft. Don't get me wrong. But Trey Murphy, is he the answer? No. So, and then you strike out in free agency pretty heavily. So thinking that they were a huge, maybe re-sign Lonzo Ball, sign and trade, whatever. We'll go over that in a moment. But I don't
Don't worry, they got Devontae Graham.
Yeah, I knew you were going to at least find a way to put that in. So
I love Devontae, but it's just
I gave the Pacers a C. I gave the Pelicans a C minus. That's all I had in terms of losers because there really wasn't that many.
Yeah, the Pelicans are ones I hadn't thought of a team that, yeah, more of losers because they kind of just didn't do anything. Like they could have done something and just didn't really do anything.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I am curious because we were watching the draft live, but we weren't able to, we basically dispersed from our draft watch party after like the 25th pick, or about the 25th pick. We ended up having to watch the rest of it at home. I do want to know genuinely, I think live, it's more raw reaction because we were with a group. So it was kind of like, that guy, haha, oh my gosh, that pick, right? It was kind of like off the wall for a minute there. What do you think of the Magic? Do you like? I mean, obviously Suggs fell at 5. That's kind of a given. But like Magic took Suggs at 5, of course, and Wagner at 8. What are your thoughts on the Magic as a team that is clearly the most obvious? We are here and we are here to rebuild.
I've said before, I thought the Magic would be a great place for a first-time coach if their front office was patient, because they're a blank slate with just a few pieces of talent. I think the Jalen Suggs pick tells me that they either are already working on or have plans to trade Markelle Fultz because there's just not a spot for him in Orlando anymore at this point. They also have Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton. And if I'm the Magic, I'm going to hold on to Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton with Jalen Suggs. Clearly I'm not a huge fan of Franz Wagner, but I mean, if there's any good situation for him to go and not have expectations,
it's there.
And develop, it's Orlando.
It's there. Yep.
Orlando was a team I didn't think there was much they could do wrong as long as they picked players who had a lot of talent, and I think they did.
So in fantasy football, this is hilarious that I'm using this example. So when you have a guy who's a top 5 running back and you take their second player, it is called a handcuff. For those of you that might not know, right? You take the handcuff of the guy that's going to. If Zeke blows his knee out, then you've got Tony Pollard. I mean, I'm prefacing this for a reason. Suggs is obviously going to come in, and he's going to be nothing against Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton. Suggs is a great talent that you have to play, but you have 3 of them, and I'm just assuming Markelle. I agree. I assume Markelle's gone. Assume he's not there, right? For a second, there's 4 guards, right? All 4 basically have the ball at point guard. So they've got now 3 handcuffs basically for Jalen Suggs. And that's a disrespect to Cole Anthony and to RJ Hampton, who I'm very high on Hampton. There's just a logjam, right? You have the handcuff for a guy. So if something with Suggs goes wrong, which it won't, he's a stellar guy, then you've got Hampton and you've got Anthony and you've got Fultz, not in that order. But like something is going on there and I can't figure out. It might just be the fact that the Magic are, I'll use your favorite example. They're throwing stuff at the wall and they'll see what sticks. I think that's what they came to. So, yes, I think it's hilarious. I just wanted to use that example because that's what's happening in Orlando.
I don't think you absolutely have to play your Anthonys and Hamptons at the 1.
No.
You may need to play Anthony more at the 1 than Hampton. Anthony is a bit of a ball dominant player. But that's not to say I think he's a talented enough scorer he can learn to play as an off-ball combo guard. There have been discussions the past several years on whether or not Cole Anthony, because his first instinct is as a scorer, is better off at the 2 guard anyway. I don't see it as much as a logjam because, frankly, when you start looking over to the 2, if you make all of those guys point guards, well, now look over to the 2. Who does Orlando have at the 2?
Right, nothing, right?
No, nothing.
So
it's 4 guards.
Yeah.
I do think Markelle Fultz is on the way out because he is a 1 guard. He's not going to be a 2. And they did the experiment, and it's time for them probably to move on. I think Markelle Fultz lands somewhere and hopefully does well, but that place just probably isn't Orlando.
Yeah, darn, they gave up Jonathan Simmons, a second-round pick. Those darn Magic for taking a swing at Fultz, right? They did really well with that trade. So not their fault that he unfortunately had a knee injury after that. So are we ready for free agency? I'm going to call it the free agency frenzy because it is a frenzy every year, even if it's a less boring year. Yeah, I don't think we are. Because, again, these opinions I said this last week with the preview, these opinions may be outdated like tomorrow. When we post this. So yeah. I'll put a disclaimer in the comments like I always.
But I think a good place to start, and I'm just going to throw this there and I'm going to mute my microphone, but Russell Westbrook's a Los Angeles Laker.
I feel like that scene in SpongeBob. I'm dating myself with the sun, with the lamp light, and they're laying under the lamp. And it's like they can't. They're like feeling under the pressure. Josh, I am not going to lie to you when I say my opinion's changed about 3 times since it happened. And where I'm going to resolve we're going to call it the median of my feelings, right? Where you take an average, the median of my feelings.
The mean is the average. Median is the center one. Like if you had 3, you're going to take the center.
I'm going to take the mean. I'm going to take the average. Sorry. I'm in the fluster here. I'm going to give you my opinion in the last week, come into one conclusion on August 4th, because it will be different by October. And maybe December when we're wondering what the heck happened. The Lakers are 15 games under 500. Anyway, so I have to side with the fact that, by the way, Carmelo Anthony is a Los Angeles Laker too. My 3rd favorite player of all time. I am a happy man today. Carmelo Anthony is a Los Angeles Laker. I am
Carmelo Anthony is your 3rd favorite player of all time.
We will save, and we talk about favorites, we'll save this segment. I've already said my 3 in the order that they are throughout the show. So fans that have been here since the beginning will have heard all 3 of them. We'll have a segment in the offseason when we're bored with NBA content.
Toby,
we'll
Melo,
go over
and
favorite.
who?
Alan.
AI.
Alan. Yeah, there you go. See, I wish AI could be on this team, but no, they may need a shooter at this rate. But I do like the fact that Melo's there. The Westbrook thing, my conclusion is that, yes, you texted me not long after it happened. Like, are they just throwing stuff at the wall and see if it sticks? That's absolutely what they're doing.
That had nothing to do with Russell Westbrook, that comment.
I know, but it does, because at this point, for what they gave up, the Wizards got a decent haul, I guess. If you look at potential, I don't love it. At the end of the day, I'm fine with offloading that to get a Hall of Fame type player in Russell Westbrook. It's the fit that I think a lot of people are going to and laugh at. LeBron's already tweeted, like, we see the hate, we see the noise, whatever. And let's just put that out the window. Russell Westbrook is a talented basketball player. Absolutely. that knows, and I trust he knows how to adapt in the right situations. Because, yes, he wasn't the Russell Westbrook we know today when he was on that Thunder team with Harden and Durant, but he was able to work well with guys around him like that. I get that they're not the same type of players, not the same type of shooters, all that stuff. I just have to trust that he's going to be a professional and understand that, like, he has the opportunity here, which, by the way, we should be talking about this more. The fact that he was the phone call Kawhi made in 2019 before Paul George, that's like getting swept under the rug, I feel like. But he wants to be in LA, so he's going to be happy. He's home, I guess you could say, right? Everybody says they want to go play home, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's home.
I mean, he played college ball at UCLA, so.
And he's from Los Angeles. He's from that area. I have to respect the fact he's going to be able to adapt in that offense. He's not an above-average shooter consistently. He can shoot when he needs to, but I think they're going to solve the shooting woes in the other parts of the team, where they get your Malik Monks, they get your Carmelo Anthonys, they get your guys like that, Kendrick Nuns, right? That I don't necessarily know if the three-point shooting is going to be the downfall, because but it was last year, so I don't really. I keep coming back to the conclusion that he's a professional. He's a guy that's just going to impact the game in ways that just some guys even can't as professionals. He's going to be able to make an impact because he's a guy that can do everything you need him to. He plays hard. He's an above average defender. It's just so sweet irony for somebody who 3 years ago I thought was a good, good stats, bad team guy, right? So, like, the fact that he's on my team 3 years later, I'm going to have to succumb some of that opinion. I like it. I really do. I can't come to a full-gone conclusion why, but I do like it. I think he's going to be a good professional player, and I think he's going to be able to take playing with LeBron and playing with Anthony Davis very well.
So my perspective is slightly different. And it has nothing to do with the trade. I mean, like, one, I thought the Wizards did great because I thought there was no reason for them to have traded for Well, they traded for Westbrook to like get rid of John Wall, which I thought they did a great job with, and then turn Westbrook over into players they can use to build with their young team. I don't think the Lakers bringing in Westbrook is bad. I don't think you can bring in a former MVP and that be a bad situation. And I think that Westbrook in LA could work in theory. If LeBron James essentially gives Russell Westbrook the keys to the offense. What I mean by that, I do not mean like Russell Westbrook is the guy, the star. He's not in LA. But Russell Westbrook is a point guard a la Oscar Robertson who leads his team with the ball in his hands and facilitates and runs the offense. LeBron James has not allowed anybody else on his team to be the guy facilitating and running the offense since Kyrie Irving did in 2016 in Cleveland. And even then, the relationship there didn't work out. If LeBron James gives Russell Westbrook the keys, becomes an off-ball small forward, which he's a great talent, he can do, I think it works. Will LeBron James give Russell Westbrook the keys?
Yeah,
I think probably not.
He's 37, going to be 38. I ultimately think he will and should, because he's clear he wants to finish his time there in LA and he doesn't want to finish it soon. So my thought process behind the fact that, and by the way, this is the best player he's played with in a long time in terms of, that's not disrespect to Anthony Davis, but Russell Westbrook's going to go down as an all-time player. He's going, whether people like it or not, they're going to have to get over it.
Will be an all-time great player as well.
He will. He will. I think he's just, Russell Westbrook has, granted he's a couple years, 3 years older than him. He's done a lot. He's got the MVP. He's really the biggest thing he's missing in terms of just his statistical anomalies and what he's done for the game and this and that. Like, he's really going to be a guy I think we're going to remember, right? But
I mean, he's the greatest triple-double in NBA history.
Right. And that's no disrespect to Oscar Robertson, but he's missing a championship. Oscar Robertson has a title. So my thought process is immediately whenever it happened.
Robertson also played with Kareem, but that's just
right. And Westbrook is playing with LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Now he is now.
Yeah. So my immediate thought that I'll go back to and why I came up with the mean of that total was my first thought as a pick and roll dominant league right now, in terms of just if you have a playmaker that can not necessarily defend the pick and roll. I don't think he can at a high level, but I think he can facilitate the pick and roll, and I think he can be a part of it on either part of the ball. Who better but than to have Westbrook and Anthony Davis? I think that's going to be an unbelievable pick and roll. And LeBron at that point is going to have to be the side, because it's going to get them that far. At that point, once you have to dominate who has to have the ball to make the shot, are you going to give it to Russell Westbrook or you give it to LeBron? I would trust LeBron with the final shot. That's where I think he's going to have to be important. He's going to have to be important when he needs to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with LeBron not being able to compete for an MVP ever again. That's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. This is about this entire offseason for the Lakers. Since here we are, we're already opening up with them. Thank you. I appreciate that. And we can never talk about them again until October. It's the fact that this is like, when I say all in or nothing, this is it. Their average age, if you take the mean of all their ages, thank you, Josh, for correcting me on that, it's 34 and a half. It's really high. It's a retirement home. I've seen the jokes, but I'm okay with it. These guys are all winners. These guys are all guys that have already succeeded in LA or already succeeded elsewhere and are going to help this team win. Overall, I'm happy with everything. We don't have to go through the Dwight Howards of the world. We don't have to go through the Kendrick Nunns. We don't have to go through everything. They signed it. At this point, I'm probably going to have to help them pay the tax at this
or
rate.
the Malik Monks. Or the
Malik Monks, Kendrick Nunns, whoever.
Throw name of player at wall.
Marcus Gasol came back as well. There's a lot of talent there that is past their prime, yes. But I think they're going to help this team win. Yes, like I said, the tax bill, it's LA. They're gonna write it off and move on. Yeah. I think my blood pressure has been at the very highest it's ever been in a while, and it's also been at the lowest point. But the fact that draft night started at 5:15 and I'm coming home from work and that's the first thing that happened, at least let me get to 7:30 before this happens. God bless. Okay.
I will say this.
I'm done with the Los Angeles
In
Lakers.
regards to, and I'm not saying that this is the NBA Finals matchup I want next year, because I generally don't like these teams very much. I apologize to you, Lakers fan. But if the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets played in the NBA Finals, talk about storylines, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
oh, yeah.
Like,
we can save it for them.
Like, you could start with just the fact of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. You could look to the side storyline of the LeBron versus Kevin Durant thing on they were kind of players who almost kind of crossed at the same time for being massive stars. But then there's just the whole Russell Westbrook, KD, James Harden thing. There's all of the bad blood between Westbrook and KD. But then there's the fact that Russell Westbrook and James Harden, neither of them have championships. And they came together to try to win one, couldn't do it, had a less than amicable split. And they could be competing against each other for one of them to walk away with a championship and the other not.
I'm excited. I'm just going to save it for then.
That'd be a story.
I don't want to spend any more time. I don't want to spend any more time on it for sure, because I think that's awesome for the both of them. And I hope we get to that point. I really do.
I mean, I don't really, but I think it'd be interesting.
Just so there was a lot of signings in the last few days. So we really haven't addressed how we're going to look at this in detail, but there's a couple, I guess, my notes here have them by division. I don't love it, but I just want to go over a couple in the Pacific division since you brought up the Lakers. There's a couple I want to mention. We'll mention the guys who haven't signed at the end, but I want to go over a couple I like and get your thoughts on them. We've already talked about Dwight Howard. The Kent Bazemore thing, I just think is.
That's right. Kent Bazemore also signed with.
Yes. I just have to say, this is hilarious that he turned down more playing time and more money with the Golden State Warriors to quote, and to sign with the Lakers to quote, have a better chance of competing with a title. Next, I really like JaVale McGee. Also, Trevor Ariza. Is there anyone else? Did I forget anyone? That's right. Anyway, all right.
The all 2000s NBA draft team.
Yes. I love JaVale McGee to Phoenix. Campaign's returning and Chris Paul's returning. Any thoughts on the Phoenix Suns?
No, I think the Suns are rightfully going.
That was so anticlimactic.
I think the Suns are rightfully going to try to run it back, and I think, in doing so, they have a fair shot at winning the Western Conference again. So,
regardless, that Chris Paul contract is a steal for the first 2 years, and after that, it's back to 40-year-old and highway robbery. After that,
it a steal?
For 2 years, it is. For the first 2 years, absolutely. For the first 2 years,
you're going to pay 41-year-old Chris Paul $30 million.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the first 2 years, while he's still peak, is going to be fine. It's the next two. You're right. You're right, of course. A couple of the Sacramento Kings were pretty active. They brought back Rashawn Holmes for a 4-year deal, Alex Lynn for a 2-year, and Mo Harkless. Nothing to say there. It's the Sacramento Kings. We are very sorry. Batum was a big one that I think a lot of contenders were going to fight for. He actually eventually went back to the Clippers. And then Otto Porter is going to the Warriors, which that surprised me, on a 1-year deal.
That's a good pickup for Golden State.
It is. It's a great pickup because he's a 28-year-old guy who's a top, 5-10 pick.
That's a great fit in the Golden State offense because I think Otto Porter is an incredible shooter.
39.5% last year. Any thoughts on the Pacific Division before we go into the Northwest where it gets kind of weird?
No, keep on rolling through. That's my only big thing. I had forgotten about the Otto Porter signing, but that's a really good one.
There's a lot to forget. There's no one's going to torch us on Twitter for forgetting any of these because there's so many. Northwest Division, by the way, it's hilarious we're going over divisions because I've made the joke many times that no one, if you walked up to a pretty high NBA fan on the street right now and said, can you name me the 5 teams in the Northwest Division without looking at a map? They probably
I could.
I probably could too. But
let's see if I can.
Oh gosh. I don't have it in front of me. This is totally just off
You've
the
got
rails.
Portland, Denver,
Yeah.
Minnesota, Utah, Oklahoma City.
I believe that was right because Minnesota did not make any move in free agency and or the draft, so they're not on this list.
And Oklahoma City's only in the Northwest Division because they were when they were in Seattle.
Yeah. There'll be some weird redistricting here soon in the next couple of years. Hopefully. The Jazz re-signed Mike Conley. That was the ultimate goal for the Jazz. That's the only thing they've done. Otherwise, they did sign Hassan Whiteside. That was another one that they did.
It's a very
like
Jazz move.
Very Jazz move. I like it. Move. But the ultimate goal coming in, we said it multiple times about 3 weeks ago that Mike Conley was the goal for the Jazz, and it was succeeded 3 years, $72.5 million. I like it because at this point you were going to lose your point guard that you need. Otherwise, what are you going to do? And also, the only thing I don't like about it is the fact that they actually, because of the way they negotiated it, they're going to save a little bit of luxury tax, but they're still going to be $15 million over. So the Jazz are going to they're in this point where it's a literal win now.
Yep.
And that's what they're going to have to do.
I expect them in the semifinals probably of the Western Conference, but maybe they get lucky. You never know.
Any other thoughts on Mike Conley and the Jazz? We'll just keep on rolling. Cody Zeller and Ben McLemore and Norman Powell are going to be Portland Trailblazers. Cody Zeller, I like the backup, or I like the fit there based on Zach Collins leaving. We'll get to Zach Collins in a little bit. Norman Powell was the big impending one there as a guy who's going to be that 18 point per game. Evan Fournier could be really good defender. I can't figure out what I think about Norman Powell. He's a really good player. 5 years, $90 million. He went out and played his butt off at the end of the year and deserved that contract. Whether he deserved it in Portland, if they trade Damian Lillard, well, he's going to score more than 18 because he'll probably score about 25 once he leaves if he leaves. So I do like the Norman Powell, Cody Zeller, and Ben McLemore moves. Any thoughts there from the Blazers?
Yeah, I'm very happy for Cody Zeller.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, I am.
I know. I knew you were going to say it.
It's a good spot for Cody to go and to play that backup big man role. It was kind of a mutual parting of ways in Charlotte. The Hornets weren't really planning on making an offer. Cody Zeller wasn't really planning on staying. So it's kind of equal walking free. I really wonder I hope for Portland that bringing Zach Collins back was their first choice. Because if their first choice was letting Zach Collins walk and signing Cody Zeller, then I have some questions. But
I believe the injury concerns were the big pointer there for them, and the fact that they had kind of given him some time. Yeah, I think it's a short-term Band-Aid more than it is a long-term re-sign next year, and trying to go with the flow there with Cody as another. If he plays well, they give him another contract. I don't see that, but yeah, Zach Collins had to have been the priority if they're smart whatsoever. So Mike Muscala, big Thunder guy, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nothing really to talk about here. The Thunder are, like we said, in this awful 5 year from now timeline.
There's one thing to talk about for the Thunder.
Well, 5 year 172 is a big deal for Shai. Is that what you're referring to?
I was going to say they waived Kemba Walker today, so we should mention that.
Oh, that's right. See, I hate having just a couple days worth in front of me because this happened today. So I have day 1 and 2 in front of me, so that's not good. Yes, Kemba Walker has been waived, Josh. Man, go ahead. What do you think? Kemba to New York.
I mean, that's not shocking at all. At first, the report came out and I thought he'd been traded to New York, and I'm like, well, that works out conveniently for Kemba. But it's not shocking that he got waived and then signed with the Knicks. The guy's from New York. It was obviously where he was going to want to go play.
It's one that I didn't see coming, though, in terms of, I knew he was going to be available for the Thunder, but I didn't know how and I didn't know where. And then a friend of ours in one of our chats was like, the Knicks, the one glaring thing is point guard. They brought back Derrick Rose, who they played pretty heavily as a 6-man last year. And I'm like, there's time. I told him on day 1 and day 2, I was like, there's time. They're going to get somebody. I just don't know how. I'm dumbfounded on what they're going to do. Kemba's a great choice. I mean, if he can stay healthy. I mean, this alarming stat I mentioned about the fact that he missed the same amount of games in his Charlotte career that he did in his time in Boston is what's alarming. But it's Kemba Walker, right? It's also, by the way, I just have to say this because we skipped over the book night part. They selected today, of course, you mentioned this to me, the UConn guard in the later lottery.
Yes.
On
Let
the
me
10-year
explain the
anniversary.
exact point of this. In 2011, the Charlotte Bobcats selected UConn point guard Kemba Walker, number 11 in the NBA draft. 10 years later, in 2021, the Charlotte Hornets selected James Bouknight, UConn point guard, number 11 in the NBA draft.
Awesome. I love it. NBA history has these weird ways of repeating itself.
Exact
I've
10
mentioned
years,
that to you.
same pick, same position, same school.
Weird, right? NBA history is hilarious.
No, I don't feel like it's a coincidence. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right. So the Knicks get their point guard in Kemba. I believe it was a 3-year deal. We still are pending because it was today. I think we're pending the dollar amount. I won't spend some time on the Nuggets because I think they're running it back with Jamal and the reigning MVP. But I do like the Will Barton coming back for 2-year, $32. Very good contract for the fact that they probably will move him in the second year of that contract because I don't believe it has a player option. Will Barton will be like a piece that they could probably trade if they want to make a pick. Or make a big move like that. But JaMychal Green coming back 2-year, 17, another tradable contract. And then Jeff Green, I think I really like for them. That 2-year, $10 million, really good vet savvy guy that Brooklyn had, pending the fact that he'll play probably 8 to 12 minutes for the Nuggets. But I do like it. I think they retooled and just re-signed and are ready to just run it back. So any thoughts on this division otherwise? Am I missing anything otherwise for this division? I know the Kemba one I missed because, of course, it's not on the screen. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Nothing.
I think
huge.
it's a lot of teams that kind of stood pat for good reasons, and then there was Minnesota who just kind of didn't do anything for unknown reasons.
Yeah, Minnesota fans are like that meme where it's like the guy with the stick poking something, going, "Come on, do something, do something." That's what it was.
I mean, like if like the Minnesota Stars like stayed healthy, that would be something.
Yeah,
to improve the team's chances.
Southwest Division. You've got so far the Mavericks are the main point here. Tim Hardaway Jr. returning, a lot of returning guys for them. 4-year, 74. Boban Marjanovic 1-year deal pending total. Probably
great locker room guy.
Absolutely. Reggie Bullock, shooters get great contracts in the NBA in 2021. Reggie Bullock gets a 10-year deal. Or I'm sorry, $10 million deal for 3 years. I'm tired. It's late. Free agency is wild. And then Sterling Brown, again, 2 years, $6 million. Any thoughts on the Mavericks, who we, by the way, weren't very high on last year and we're hitting the panic button about 3 or 4 times in the season and didn't like the roster. So
I think my biggest thought is that Kristaps is still there. It's interesting. I didn't expect to be at this point in Kristaps Porzingis to still be a Maverick.
Yeah. I don't know.
But hey, more power to you.
We'll see if they are fed up with him by February at the trade deadline.
I don't think like it's a fed up side. I don't think it was Kristaps' fault. I mean, he was very vocal that there wasn't a spot for him in the Rick Carlisle system. Rick Carlisle is no longer the coach of the Mavericks. We're going to get a new coach in Dallas. So
a guy that likes to, and has already said he's going to get him more involved. So how that happens and how I still think Porzingis has to improve is just a guy who cares. I think that's going to matter. So maybe he'll care under Jason Kidd a little bit more. So Devontae Graham, you've already hit on, but it was a 4-year, $47 million contract for the Pelicans. Unless you have any other thoughts, I'm going to, local Raleigh guy. Shout out to Raleigh. And then the Spurs, the weirdest ones there. Zach Collins, 3-year, $22. I like it. And then Doug McDermott, 3-year, $42. So again, 2021 shooters shoot. Shooters make money.
A Popovich kind of guy.
Absolutely. That's exactly why I liked it. I was like, yes, all right.
I like Doug McDermott a lot. I think he's a great bench player if you want a guy to go out there and get a bucket.
Yeah, I love how we're just some of these were like, next. Let's roll into where we are, the Atlantic Division. This is where you have the Knicks. So we pretty much are not going to hit on this division very much because we've.
So based on, you can correct me if I'm wrong, what I saw from the Knicks are basically running it back plus Kemba Walker. It's that kind of
It's exactly what they're doing, actually. Verbatim what you would say. They are running back Evan Fournier, which I guess that's not.
No, they brought in Fournier. That's great.
That's the other one,
I love that move for the Knicks.
I love it after his performance in France. I didn't love
it.
4 weeks ago.
Because he absolutely torched Team USA. And I think what should be clear in this is that Evan Fournier shouldn't just be all right, your part in the offense is you run to this edge of the 3-point line and we might hit you for a catch and shoot. Like he can orchestrate his own offense against the best NBA players.
My two thoughts with Fournier is if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago if he had signed there, I'd have told you it was terrible because he was the same guy that the Celtics traded for at the trade deadline, and then he proceeded to shoot 0 for 12 in his appearance and a negative 22 plus minus. So there's the ups and the downs with Evan Fournier. The contract's a little high for the ups and downs being that way. However, can't discredit his performance, right? Like we said. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be good for them because
I don't think the contract is too high. So he got 4 years, $72 million. When you got
78.
When you've got Duncan Robinson getting 5 years, 90, it's kind of a shooter's going to get money kind of thing. And Fournier's a good shooter, so it's there. So
yeah, absolutely. I think the reason he's going to be, that was my second one, was the fit. I like the fit in New York better than I like the fit in Boston. Derrick Rose returning on a 3-year, 43. I just want Derrick Rose to win a title. I don't think it's in New York. Nerlens Noel, 3-year, 32. Good contract for Nerlens. Blake Griffin was a Brooklyn Net. That's it. Alec Burks was another returning 3-year, 30 million. So the Knicks had some cap space. They used it on guys they like. And by the way, all of those contracts end with a team option. So that is really good for the Knicks because they can retool in that 2023 free agency, where I think a lot of people forget might be really exciting. Nothing else really in this division. Gary Trent Jr. locked back up by the Raptors. Great young guy for them. Blake Griffin's back on a 1 year for the Nets. And I'm definitely missing one. The Heat was the one you mentioned already. Duncan Robinson, largest ever for an undrafted.
Southeast Division.
Yeah, so we should probably cover the Heat who aren't on this screen. So let me go back to my other screen.
Atlantic Division, Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry.
And the Boston Celtics, but
yeah. So then I've hit everything on that division, right? Am I out of players in that division? I am. Yeah. So that's it. Nothing really.
Sixers signed Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
Highly questionable decision for the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm just going to make that point blank. They lost their playoff matchup for poor free throw shooting. So they signed Andre Drummond as their most prominent addition.
Right.
The Celtics traded Tristan Thompson away and brought in Chris Dunn, which I like that move for the Celtics. I guess Chris Dunn is the starting point guard in Boston, unless it's Marcus Smart or Peyton Pritchard. That's not completely resolved, but the biggest hope in the offseason for Celtics fans is Jaylen Brown going to be healthy in October? That's their big thing, really.
Yep. So I don't have any other thoughts on the Celtics because at this point I feel like it's just we have to trust Brad Stevens in his first year to get something done. Before we get to the Southeast that I've mistaken for, the Central had a couple of key ones that I think were big right out the gate at 6 o'clock Eastern. The Pacers re-signed TJ McConnell, the steals leader in the last couple of years. TJ McConnell, 4-year, 35. Torrey Craig, I like at 2-year, 10. I'm a big Torrey Craig guy. I think those two signings made up for how their draft went, personally. Any thoughts on the Pacers or the Pistons, who got Trey Lyles on a 2-year deal, Corey Joseph, and Kelly Olynyk? Any thoughts on those two?
Not to bypass those teams, but you know the team in the Central Division that I actually want to talk about.
I'm getting through. We're going down the list. But I just wanted to make sure there was no thoughts on Indiana or on Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of standing pat. I don't Indiana's in a position where they've kind of got the talent, and I guess they're going to kind of run it back for the most part with a couple of small additions with Rick Carlisle. What Detroit does in free agency for the most part is just kind of picking guys to kind of fill the space in the short term while they build. So nothing moved the needle too much for me.
All right. Well, the needle moving of this division, there's a couple here. The Bulls were the active and opener in free agency, and they got Lonzo Ball, who agrees to a 4-year, $85 million contract and a sign and trade with New Orleans. Necessarily, the sign and trade doesn't matter in terms of what they gave up. It wasn't a lot. It was more so the fact they basically just signed Lonzo Ball because of the sign and trade era we're in. And the Bulls also signed Alex Caruso to a 4-year, $37 million contract. Josh, what are your thoughts on Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso in the Bulls situation?
That's all you have for the Bulls situation?
Am I missing
DeMar DeRozan?
Oh, thank you. See,
the
this is
Chicago. Alex Caruso?
You need to carry this next segment because my screen's all over the place.
Biggest name. I mean, like, theoretically, or I guess in practice, Lonzo Ball is going to be the biggest pickup for Chicago, I think, because of how much better he got last year, which was just an incredible leap, and how young he is. DeRozan's the biggest name by far. The Chicago Bulls are going to be able to run out Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic in a starting lineup. They're probably still going to get Lauri Markkanen back, so you can add him in there. That's an incredible lineup for the Bulls. That's a playoff lineup for the Bulls, quite frankly.
Not to mention off the bench, you've got Caruso, White, and Patrick Williams. So,
but I love the Bulls free agency. I mean, they're swinging for the fences. I'm glad somebody is. I'm glad there's some non-playoff team that's really swinging for the fences. Like, the Lonzo Ball get is huge. He's like 22 or 23 years old. He's not old. He's so young. It's like just getting a drafted player who massively improved his shooting, is an incredible passer with great speed and a great facilitator. Bulls did great.
The passing and the passing was obviously, but the shooting and the efficiency was the problem for him out of the draft as a Lakers fan who was thrilled for Lonzo Ball. I would love for him to have worked out. And I think this is a huge pickup for them because my initial just like overreaction was like 4 seed in the East, like Knicks, kind of like how they pulled it off last year. And then my like initial, oh my gosh, a couple injuries. They're like one Zach LaVine injury away from maybe falling into that play-in or maybe even out of the playoffs. They're in this huge swing here, and it's all based on if they're healthy and if they're going to play well as a team, if this is a good fit. Can Billy Donovan be the guy is the other question. I don't know. I don't love Billy Donovan, but so thank you for correcting me on DeMar DeRozan. This is why I hate having my notes in 2 different places because I'm trying to catch back up after vacation. Free agency, by the way, happened. I didn't return from vacation until 1 a.m. last night to the listeners, and free agency happened Monday, of course, at 6 p.m. Eastern. So I am in a full debacle here. Thank you. The Bucks signed Bobby Portis back for a 2-year, $9 million contract. Bucks fans love him. Nothing else to say. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers, the other big one in this division, signed Jared Allen to a 5-year, $100 million contract.
He's that good?
He is that good. Mobley and Jared Allen, is that going to work? I guess we'll find out. Mobley's a huge talent. So
give it a go. Might as well try it. If you're not bringing Colin Sexton back, I think
that was what I was going to say. So, dude, we're finally made it to the Heat. The Miami Heat, who basically burned down the paper wallet and just said, "Here we go." No,
Miami Heat, who are stacked for next year.
Yeah.
Man,
they took that Bucks beating personally. Jimmy Butler, 4-year, 184 to recap. Kyle Lowry, that was unfortunately, this is the Woj Shams era we're in, even though I love both of them dearly. We basically knew Kyle Lowry was going to the Miami Heat about 6 hours before. To a 3-year, $90 million contract. And it was a sign and trade with Toronto. We already mentioned Duncan Robinson, largest contract at $90 million, 5 years for a guy that was undrafted. PJ Tucker on a 2-year, $14 million with a player option on that second year. I really like that one. I am not done, folks. Dwayne Dedmon, 1-year contract to the Miami Heat, and Gabe Vincent and Max Strus have returned on 2-way contracts.
As well as re-signing Victor Oladipo.
That was the one that I didn't have in front of me. Thank you for catching
that. Well, I mentioned kind of like that big 4 lineup that Chicago has. Miami's the same way. You're going to be able to put Lowry, Oladipo, Butler, and Adebayo out there on the floor together. A worse Miami roster won the Eastern Conference in 2020.
Yeah, Tyler Hero's like probably a 6 man of the year candidate right now.
As you were like running through all of that stuff, though, I thought, in 2 years, is there going to be any money for Tyler Hero in Miami?
So I
Doesn't
said
look
that,
like it.
so I made the Tyler Hero joke with the fact that he's going to be a 6 man of the year favorite, probably in most
Yeah.
sports books. But yeah, also he might be a 2 years from
Big
now. Where
free
is he
agent
going?
to
Yeah.
look at because I mean Duncan got paid, which I understand. Duncan's probably the best spot up shooter in the NBA the past 2 years while Klay Thompson's been gone. Uh, I think Klay Thompson comes back and plays like he did before. He's a much better spot up shooter than Duncan Robinson. But like just straight catch and shoot, like Duncan Robinson's probably been that guy. So it makes sense that he's making all that money. And great for him, like an undrafted guy getting that. You can't help but be happy for him.
This is the same Tyler Hero that they wouldn't give up for James Harden. So
yes,
let's hope he turns out like he should as a great 6 man for this team.
But they've spent all the money now, so I don't know like what's going to be there under the cap.
Again, 2 years from now, and he's going to
Yeah.
fall in that. 2 years from now, it's going to be a crazy free agency. I do love Kyle Lowry in Miami just as a culture fit. I think it's great alongside Jimmy Butler. They're going to be a top 3 defensive team next year, not in the East, but in the NBA, assuming fully healthy. If they run into the Bucks next year, that's going to be a brutal first, second, or third round matchup, depending on where that falls. So nothing really else in this division other than Trae Young getting a 5-year, $207 million contract. That's where we are, which, by the way, I didn't have like this at the beginning of free agency. The cap fell $4 million. That seems weird that it did, and yet there's a lot of money getting thrown around here. Gorgie Jang and Spencer Dinwiddie is now a Washington Wizard as of today. That was a good one. I think if they're at this point, you and I thought we were going to tear it down. They should tear it down, whatever. They're obviously, based on draft night, Beal is there, and Beal is there to stay, and he's been trying to throw funny tweets out there. He threw the little, this is not a visual podcast, but he threw the little like thinking emoji out there on Twitter about 5 hours ago, trying to just, I guess, stir stuff up. But you've got a Spencer Dinwiddie, Bradley Beal, and a lot of young supporting cast around them. This Wizards team could be like the Bulls last year, where they like win a good amount of games and be kind of weirdly in that 7 to 12 range. That it's going to probably be exciting to watch. The Wizards are kind of like on the fly retooling, Josh. It's weird. With Bradley Beal still.
I still don't love it. I'm standing by my point that I think they should have traded Beal while his
blow it up.
His value was as high as it could possibly be. I think what's interesting is that maybe what had happened was that their asking price for Beal was so high people weren't willing to pay, because that was who the Lakers inquired about originally, and is a player that would have fit that Lakers system, at least would have made a lot more sense. And then the Lakers ended up trading for Russell Westbrook, someone who had definitely had a lower price due to his contract and not being able to shoot as well as Bradley Beal. Yeah, I still think the Wizards should have blown it up. One other big story, and kind of a surprising note, because we didn't think they were going to make an offer to him, the Atlanta Hawks re-signed John Collins as well. So they were able to kind of re-up on both of their young stars with Young and Collins, which is good to see them being able to kind of keep that team together and try to run that back to the Eastern Conference. I think it'll be interesting to see this coming year. Are the Hawks able to run that back? It kind of came out of nowhere, so I think it's going to be interesting to see if this ends up, was this a fluke or was it real? So
because I mean, obviously with them bringing Collins and giving Trae the extension, they're basically just, this is it. This is the same team. So
yeah, I mean, it makes sense with young. I mean, it's like they're all young players. Like running it back with a team that lost in the Eastern Conference Finals when all of these guys are in their early 20s is an incredibly smart move. Not criticizing that at all.
Just lastly, of a couple that got, I think, overlooked, or that we don't want to at least overlook, and we can keep rolling because there's a couple thoughts on some guys that still haven't signed. Is Markieff Morris is also going to the Heat on a 1-year deal. Your Charlotte Hornets signed Ish Smith. These are all ones I like. Patty Mills and the Brooklyn Nets have agreed to a 2-year, $12 million deal, with the second year having a player option, so he can decide if he wants to go for another title after the Brooklyn try, I guess. That one's, I think, going to be huge because that's just some shooting off the bench to go with that Brooklyn unit. Like with Cam Thomas, I really like Rodney Hood to Milwaukee on that 1-year deal. Rudy Gay to the Jazz. That was the other one I told you I was trying to remember. It was Whiteside and it was Rudy Gay. It was a 2-year, $12 million contract with that player option. And the last two I had, Sam Decker, after 2 seasons overseas. Shout out to Sam Decker for returning to the NBA and playing for the Toronto Raptors. And then Josh, Steph Curry, for the first time in NBA history, someone has signed 2 $200 million deals. Well deserved. Yep. No thoughts on it. Just the fact that, and they also got, Nemanja Bjelica. That was the other one. So Steph Curry signed another $200 million. This one being 4-year, $215. He will make north of $50 million very soon.
Really crushing my dreams that Steph Curry would finish his career at this
right.
down.
It would. Well, he could technically still. I mean, it would be.
Yeah, but it's not going to be as fun if 39-year-old Steph Curry ends his career on a 1-year deal in Charlotte.
Yeah, I think it would be pacing out at 37 or 38 right now. So yeah, that would be unbelievable. Because of time reasons and because of the fact we've covered everything else, Josh, a couple of free agents still available, believe it or not. I'll go through them. Kawhi Leonard, Dennis Schroeder is still pending. Reggie Jackson, Kelly Oubre, who has worked out for multiple, not teams, I guess you don't work out for teams of free agency, but he's done a lot of workouts recently for a couple of different reasons. Danny Green is a big one for a title contender still looming out there. You mentioned Larry Markkinen already on a restricted deal. Paul Millsap, another contending team looking for a guy. We already mentioned Victor Oladipo. That is already changed since now. And then the one I think could be the biggest for a contender is Lou Williams. So there's a couple of guys that are not necessarily 35 and old and ready to just retire, but there's a lot of potential guys out there. Obviously, Kawhi being the token one. But there's just a lot of helping pieces for a title team. Any thoughts on who's left going through that list?
Kawhi Leonard is a free agent without being a free agent.
Right.
There's nowhere else he's going to play than for the Clippers. He's made it very clear that he wants to live in California and play and contend for a title. He wants to live in Southern California and contend for a title. And the Lakers spent all their money. So that leaves one team that's in Southern California at all, really, and that's the Clippers. So it doesn't really matter. They'll get that worked out. Which leaves, I think, the biggest name to consider left in the free agency is Dennis Schroeder. I think we're only 2 years removed from Dennis Schroeder coming in second in Sixth Man of the Year voting in Oklahoma City, an award I think he should have won that year. I think he should have been Sixth Man of the Year. I think he kind of got robbed in that situation. He had a down year, did not fit in the Lakers system well at all, but he's still an incredible point guard and could step into a team that doesn't have a good point guard and be their starter right off the bat. The thing that immediately comes to my mind is that if the Boston Celtics aren't talking to Dennis Schroeder, I don't know what they're doing because they don't have a starting point guard. And there's an incredible one right there. I think it'll be really interesting to see where he goes.
It's not necessarily on the Celtics talking to him. It's necessarily more on the fact that Dennis Schroeder want to play there after the point guard history. Reggie Jackson, I think is going to be. I think the two left that are going to be important for title teams, other than Dennis Schroeder, in terms of, like I said, more role player. I think we're in that phase now, other than Kawhi and Dennis. But Reggie Jackson's going to be huge, and I think Lou Williams, like I mentioned, I think is going to be one that's going to make or break some teams in terms of scoring off the bench. Say a Bucks team that might need it. They also let go of Brent Forbes, so that may be the replacement based on the
money. If the Bucks added Lou Williams.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. That was totally off the top. It could literally not have worked or not even make sense money-wise, but that's one that I know would be huge.
It'd make a lot of sense for the Bucks from a basketball standpoint.
If you're looking at vet minimum, absolutely. It's anybody's game if it's a vet minimum game at this point. And then Paul Millsap, if he can be a 10-minute per game defender for a title team, I don't know. But Josh, it's been a long and fun episode. Free agency's been wild. Any thoughts on free agency, the draft, anything else that we might have missed before we close it out?
Yeah, I've given all my thoughts.
All right. This has been a long and fun episode. We did warn this, of course. I did want to end, unfortunately, not necessarily on a positive note. I didn't even talk to Josh about this, but this is just me saying this. If you have anything to say, Josh, you can comment. But just as two basketball content creators, as two people who are relatively new to this space who have made connections, I do want to just at least say this as just out of love and respect. Our Twitter has grown very, very heavily, and so has our show overall in the last few months. And one of the people that helped us do that just a guy that we've talked to and connected with personally a couple times, who's helped us grow and done a lot of the Twitter Connect groups, things like that, was Mr. Sage Alvarez. And with a crushing blow to my heart here, I love Sage to death, talking to him and helping us grow. Like I said, just great guy out of California. He lost his dad yesterday, and I hate to end the episode like this, but I just want to give Sage some love. I want to make sure I'll send him this clip tomorrow, but just wanted to give a shout out to Sage. Everybody who's listening to this, if you're on Twitter, please go follow him at Sage_up. Please do that for us, because he's a guy that's helped us get where we are in terms of the Twitter space. And just wanted to make sure I gave some love to Sage for that. So, Josh, I hate to end on a somber note, but I love Sage to death. So I felt like I had to do that. So, all right. Well, this has been the 2 Pointers podcast. Don't forget to check us out on all our social medias and the Sportinarium Radio. We will be on live on Thursday for this episode posting when it goes out. This has been the 2 Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Josh. And we
will see you soon.